Welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 108 for Monday, September 28th, 2020. My name is Joel Duggan, and the resolution is back to normal, and Johnny is back in his co-host chair. Hello, sir.
Hello, I am back indeed, and shout out to F-Whip for covering for me last week. Thank you again for that, and what a great show. I really liked listening to you guys dig into the email, and I have to agree with all of your thoughts on ghasts, because, good lord, you'll hear about my troubles with ghasts lately. But if you want to hear about the other stuff we have been talking about, you can listen to the Render Distance, the extended version of the podcast, where we talked about what's been going on in my life, a couple of changes in our routines, fall food, and all manner of other stuff. You can get that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. Listen to the pre- and post-show Render Distance. So let's get into it, Joel. What have you been up to in Minecraft? Probably for the last week, because I'm pretty sure I caught up on what you were up to last week, even though I wasn't on the show.
So I have been spending more time in the medieval fantasy realm, we're calling them now, on the Citadel server. After a brief stint away in modded Minecraft, I still enjoy it, but I was able to, through all of my testing and through all my tweaking, find a way to play Minecraft on the Citadel without my frame rate going crazy. So with a kind of a renewed interest in a clean slate, I decided to stop battling all of the modern builds in the city with the block palettes and stuff, and just like, you know what, Minecraft leans hard into medieval fantasy, so let's just go do it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have to think as hard when I'm building with this kind of stuff, which is great. But I have been kind of game development brain diving into this new area, thinking like, well, what do I want the experience of my server mates to be when they arrive at this new place? And for those that may be new to the podcast, we have a player-made world hub on the server that centers around the center of the overworld, and there are command blocks that will teleport you to the various different realms, and these realms have themes, whether it's a modern city, maybe it's going to be a sci-fi zone. This one particular happens to be the medieval fantasy. So when you are teleported through the portal, when you press the button on the command block, you arrive at one of two locations. There's a camp and then there's a tower. So I was working on the area near the tower, which is in the north of this giant area, 10,000 blocks away from our spawn. And so I was able to move the tower a little bit, so that, like, rotate some parts of the tower so that it faced in the correct direction, so that when you leave the tower, you're heading straight out into the path. Created a courtyard and lit it so that it's a fairly safe. I didn't want to put doors everywhere, but it's a fairly safe place to walk out the front door and not have a creeper standing in your face. Mm-hmm. Because previous to this, my week in the game this week, it was basically mob central, because the only thing that was there was the tower and everything else was dark. It was just this giant flat field of skeletons and witches, and you're like, oh, this is going to be fun.
You're like, oh, it's back to day one Minecraft again, when you're like, all I have is a basic shelter and not much else. Exactly.
So I've been having a lot of fun just doing paths. It's something I really enjoy. It's old hat Minecraft, like when you've been playing as long as we have, you just you grab your landscape shulker box that has all your brown and green stuff in it, and you just kind of go to town on these paths. And I've been really enjoying it. The one thing that I did find really challenging was how long and how big this area is, because as we've been spending more time on the Citadel, we are getting more ambitious with the projects.
Yeah.
And this is a huge area, and I really wanted things to flow correctly. And one of the things I really enjoyed from my modded playthrough on all of Fabric 3 was the minimap. And because I have to use Fabric for performance issues, also we're running Fabric on the Citadel now server side for performance issues. I'm not seeing much of a change, but boy, are some of my server mates noticing how quickly and how much better it is on older machines and maybe internet connections that aren't super fast.
Yeah.
Really seeing a lot of improvement. So again, tip of the hat to Exumovoid, who said that on Hermitcraft they were experiencing some good results from switching to Fabric server side.
Especially if it levels the playing field for people who are having a subpar experience otherwise. That's great news.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And this weekend, I can't say anything about it because it's a secret project, but we had a community project on the Citadel where we basically had the most people ever playing on the Citadel at once ever.
Nice.
And with no real noticeable lag. Like no one was like, oh, glitching around and having a hard time. Like it wasn't, I think only one person when they went through nether portals kind of had to wait like an extra 20 seconds, but I think that's kind of average anyway.
Yeah, and I feel like with dimensions especially, it always puts a little extra strain on servers.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of other stuff that goes in there beyond just, hey, we have a lot of people in one place.
Yeah, and especially when you have players, a group of players online, and people are divided, so both dimensions are loaded, right? So you've got 3 people one place, 3 people the other. Anyway, we had a lot of fun, and it's been working out well. But as a result of having Fabric running client side, I have access to some quality of life stuff. I'm also running things like lithium and phosphor and sodium for my own purposes. But I thought I would try out the Zeros mini map, which is from the All of Fabric 3 mod pack. And I really like it, and I don't find it that, I use this in heavy quotations, cheaty. I don't think it really takes away or makes it feel like a modded experience.
Yeah.
Especially because I've already done several maps in vanilla Minecraft. Like, it's not like I'm skipping over the map content. I've just tried it, don't really enjoy it. And this is just a much better experience. And what I like so much about it is that the full screen and mini map are great for quick checks when you're making paths and trying to figure out, like, where are you? Are you following the river? Are you doing the right curve? Is it looking the way that you want? It's giant pixel art, and it's so much easier to follow when you can just pop open the mini map rather than constantly flying around with rockets and trying to look and see, if it looks right.
Yeah, or using in-game maps and having to walk around and update them every time you change something. Yeah,
exactly.
That's totally understandable. And there are some minimap mods that also have functionality built in where you can set waypoints and teleport to them, and that's the kind of stuff that's like gets into a little bit more of the cheaty realm for me. But then
exactly,
if all you're doing is kind of just using it as an overview of saying, like, okay, here's where the path begins and ends, and I need to basically draw a curvy line between those 2 points, then that's ultimately just saving you a little bit of time and making sure that you can keep your kind of building flow going without too many interruptions, which I think is
exactly
ultimately going to be a better thing than having to mess around with rockets and feel like everything gets a little bit more segmented.
And it took me a little bit to find the settings. You have to go into your hotkey settings, and it tells you which key in those hotkey settings will open up the map settings for both the mini map and the world map. Mm-hmm. And I turned off everything that wasn't just map. Waypoints, teleports. They'll show you friendly and hostile mob locations. They'll show cave maps. I'm like, nope. I want to explore caves the traditional way. Like, I don't need all that. What's really cool is how fun our nether looks, because they do this really cool thing where they kind of peel away the nether ceiling and show you kind of like where you've built player placed blocks, so you get to really see the layout of a 3-year-old nether network, which looks ridiculous. It looks like something the Doozers built from Fraggle Rock in the 80s. Like, it's really fun. But I've been having a really good time with the taiga paths and trying to experiment with stuff. We actually have an email later on the show that relates to this, so I'll go light on it now. But I've really just been enjoying the simplicity of doing the paths and the bridges. I did another bridge this week too, and this is the first time I've ever done sizable. It's a modest angled bridge, so I didn't build it straight. I built it on like a 2/1 up sort of angle. I'm not sure what that equates to. It's not a 45-degree angle. It's a shallow angle bridge.
Sure.
And it was challenging. It took me a good 2 hours, I think, on stream the other day to build it from start to finish. And it's only 3 by 15. Like, it's not a big thing.
I think angles like that are so much more difficult when you're building small. Like, it starts to lose itself in the size of something if you're building like a 3-lane highway kind of setup with that kind of angle. But when you're building something just across a Minecraft river, which can only be 15 blocks wide maximum most of the time, and is usually smaller than that, you're really going to start to kind of see the blockiness in those angles. So it's very difficult to get the detail right.
Yeah, it was hard, and I threw some pictures in our live chat here for folks to check out, and I'll have them in the blog post as well. And I think it did okay, but that's the first lesson that I learned when I pulled away from it. It's like, yeah, it looks good for what I set out to do, but I thought my mental note was like, yeah, the next time I do one of these, it's going to be 4 times the size.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it just because it'll be a little bit easier. And the other thing that I remember, and I didn't remember this until after the stream, because when I played on Vasted with Fix It and Germsy Boy had this really cool looking angled bridge, and I realized what he had done is that he had used the sections of the bridge to communicate the angle. So it's not that it was the bridge was a straight line; it was that the bridge, every time a step went up, it also went over,
Yeah.
and it wasn't any kind of like specific angle, but as a result it really worked out well because he was only moving the angle at the same time that you were going up.
Yeah.
And so it really worked out well. And so it didn't matter whether it was 3 or 5 or 1 or 2 or whatever. So the next time I do something like that, I'm going to make it wider. I'm falling into the trap of making everything footpaths. So I need to be careful when we're planning our larger towns that we make things look large enough that a cart, like that in a medieval fantasy area, that a horse-drawn carriage could go through.
Yeah.
Because right now they're all very footpath related. So I'll have to work on that. But that's it for me. What have you been up to in Minecraft?
Well, obviously last week I didn't do a huge amount, so I was just kind of spending time with family. But this week I'm back into it. Ancient debris mining has just passed the halfway point towards my netherite beacon. So I
Wow.
actually now have enough blocks of netherite to pretend I have a tier 4 netherite beacon because 81 blocks being the base of the tier 4 beacon, the 9x9 square. If you just take out each layer from the center every time, so you just move the central set of blocks up 1 block, then that makes the outside of a beacon, right? A 3x3, a 5x5 ring around that, a 7x7 ring around that, 9x9 ring around that. That's only 81 blocks still. So I can fill the inside of it with whatever I want and pretend I have a netherite beacon. But I'm still planning on going the whole hog and getting the rest of it, which is another 83 blocks. It's weird, actually, that the inside of a beacon actually takes more blocks than the outside of a beacon, but that's volume as opposed to surface area, folks. Maths. But outside of that, yeah, I'm still mining for ancient debris on streams and having a blast, no pun intended. In my Skyblock playthrough, I've just had a disastrous time trying to set up a bartering farm. Piglins are the death of me, always, because I always forget when I'm so used to a fully fledged survival world and having been in this world for so long that I have, rockets and elytra and good armor and any excuse to get away I can. Whenever you're in controlled conditions in close quarters with piglins and you open a chest, death, instantly. I'm used to controllable amounts of piglins and having an easy way to escape. So, yeah, my first death in Skyblock and several other subsequent deaths in Skyblock came to me trying to get piglins out of a really efficient zombie pigman farm that I built at the bottom of the world in the nether. And the piglins will spawn there naturally as well because it's just a nether wastes biome. So I thought, yeah, I'll just open this up and get some of the piglins out. They were even running towards me to escape from the zombie piglins, so it was easy to get them out of the farm. But then I thought, oh, I've just dropped some building supplies and they've ended up in the hoppers. Let me open the output chest to see if I can put that stuff back. Insta-killed. And so eventually I managed to shuffle a few of them into booths, name tag them or throw them some armor so they wouldn't despawn. And now I have a bartering set up in my Skyblock world, which means easy access to quartz, gravel, blackstone. Like, it's not always super useful in a full survival world. But in Skyblock, having that amount of resources just churning out in the background is going to be crucial for some of the stuff I do later. So very, very excited to have that. As for the survival guide, I'm currently spawn-proofing a Soul Sand Valley nether fortress, which I managed to find, diagonally about 1,800 blocks from my nether hub. So really not that far away, considering that the central part of my nether is all legacy terrain from 1.13 and previous updates. So I think actually if you tried using my world seed and you started fresh in 1.16, there would be a Soul Sand Valley at spawn, and there is a nether fortress right there. So that's potentially a better solution than what I had to do, which was go out and find a Soul Sand Valley that has a nether fortress in it. But thanks to the way spawning works in a Soul Sand Valley, where there's a limited number of skeleton and ghast spawns, that Nether Fortress is so productive for fortress mobs without me having to spawn-proof anything that I'm now turning that into a new Wither Skeleton farm. So that's going to be my latest survival guide project. I'm in the process of spawn-proofing that right now. It is going better than the Skyblock bartering farm did in that I have not died yet, but I am having to chug fire resistance potions because the number of blazes in the area is off the charts. And I think in the fullness of time, once I'm done farming all of the Wither Skeleton stuff, I might just convert it into a general fortress mob farm and have, all of the blaze rods and probably zombie pigmen in there as well, and skeletons and anything else the fortress is going to throw at me. Because
I have one of those that I have to fix. They're fun. It's a big project, but it's a really fun technical project, and it just looks really cool when it operates because it pumps out so much stuff.
Yeah, and in theory, building in the larger bounding box using nether brick, I could potentially use that to create like large spawning platforms, or I could go the kind of compact farm that just sits inside that crossroads area. But I've definitely seen people make some really effective wither farms using, wither roses everywhere and then piglins in the center so that they get lured towards the middle and then drop down. So there's a lot of stuff we can do there that's going to be a very, very easy way. And the main reason I want it really is for coal at this point, because the fact that zero-tick farms have been nerfed means that we no longer have something that's such an easily renewable supply of furnace fuel for larger smelting operations. But if I can get a Wither Skeleton farm together for coal and make loads and loads of coal blocks, I'll be sorted for fuel for the foreseeable future. And, blaze rods are a really good way of getting that. But I find blaze spawners, even a double blaze spawner setup, relatively slow at this point, and if you can just churn out Wither Skeletons by the bucket load from one of these fortress farms, then I feel like using coal as a fuel source becomes viable again without having to go mining for it.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I actually had to, before I went out to the medieval fantasy realm, I had to just double check all of my shulker boxes and top up all the stuff that I was missing, like lanterns and wood, and just thinking about all the stuff I wanted to build with. And coal was one of the, I was like, I have no coal on my person at all. Like none in boxes, nothing. I had to go look for some. And then I found coal ore in some chests at my old strip mine. And I had to then spend 2-3 minutes on stream just like bashing it in a concrete maker just to turn it into coal that I could actually use. Which, by the way, is a fantastic use of those setups where you can place concrete. It automatically turns into concrete, and you mine it, and it gets sucked up by a hopper. For both redstone and coal blocks, if you're using a fortune pick, you can just sit there and spam it, and it just harvests a ton in a blink of an eye, rather than having to make a giant tower and then mine it all down.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's my plan ultimately, is getting hold of a bunch of coal, and Wither Skeleton skulls and everything are going to be a bonus. People have asked me, now that I'm lighting the museum up in some areas with conduits, if I'm going to be using beacons for lighting as well, which I probably will end up doing at some stage. But yeah, just like whatever I can find, trying to use every part of the game at this point, and try and do things that people don't expect all that much. But I think
we're gonna have to change your name to Flexel Riffs.
Potentially, yes. We'll see. We'll see. So let's move on to the news, because we've waffled long enough about what's going on in our Minecraft lives. Let's talk about Minecraft Live, in fact. So Minecraft Live is next week on October 3rd at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And quick reminder that the Spawn Chunks will be having a watch party over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/pixelriffs, where we're going to re-stream Minecraft Live and give our opinions on the new developments as they happen. A post on the Minecraft Twitter account this week let us know that the big news should be dropping right from the start, and I'll quote here: "There's only 1 week left until Minecraft Live. On October 3rd, there'll be huge news, mob votes, and hilarious over-rehearsed jokes. We're mixing things up this year too, and bringing you our big announcement at the very beginning of the show." So we don't know what exactly this big announcement is. Presumably it relates to Minecraft itself, rather than any of the other stuff, but I presume we're going to get an update to Minecraft Earth and Minecraft Dungeons, or at least a roadmap of future content teased during Minecraft Live as well. The other thing you might want to participate in is the mob vote. The Minecraft.net article linked in our show notes this week will take you to Minecraft Live, vote for the next mob. And the contenders for this year's mob vote are the Moo Bloom, Glow Squid, and Iceology. You may recognize some of these mobs from the extended family of Minecraft titles. The Moo Bloom and Glow Squid are from Minecraft Earth, while the Iceology hails, no pun intended, from the recent Minecraft Dungeons Creeping Winter DLC. Voting for these mobs is going to happen via poll on Twitter, so make sure you have a Twitter account set up if you're 13 or over and can use one if you want to vote in the mob vote. And that's all going to happen on the @Minecraft tag like it has done in previous years. A couple more things to cover while we're still here in the news is that Minecraft got PlayStation VR support this week. And once again, I'll quote from the article linked at Minecraft.net. You'll be able to choose between 2 VR modes, Immersive and Living Room, as well as tweak your VR settings for maximum comfort. As you may already know, not everyone can handle all types of VR. If you have a hard time keeping your lunch down on rides of the car, boat, plane, or roller coaster variety, make sure you start with shorter sessions, try different settings, and stop immediately if you feel woozy. So there's an interview in that article with a couple of the developers or producers on the console versions of the game and looking at PlayStation VR specifically as an experience. Really interesting to hear that is coming to Minecraft. One last thing before we get into our analysis of the news, and that is that Minecraft Live has an extra announcement in the form of what's happening with Minecraft Festival. And it says, once again, a quote here: "Due to the impact of COVID-19, Mojang Studios has delayed Minecraft Festival until 2022 and will no longer be involved with official community events." And let's start by talking about this, because that makes a lot of sense, really, given that at this stage they're still having to prepare the event a significant amount of time ahead of time. If you're looking at September 2021, which I assume they were planning to reschedule the event when they said 2021 was the goal, they're still having to meet with vendors who are going to be there, people who are going to be part of the events team, and everybody is still working from home at this stage. So it's going to be increasingly difficult to get hold of everybody, get everybody into one room and plan the event in the same way. Plus, we don't necessarily know that COVID-19 is going anywhere at this point, and it seems like delaying the event until 2022 is going to give them even more time to prepare and make sure that everything, safety-wise is where it needs to be, but also get all of the people who need to meet and decide what's going to happen in this event to actually be in the same room if that's possible.
Yeah, I think the delay makes a lot of sense. I follow a lot of tech news, and one of the things that I've noticed on the tech news podcasts is, as with Minecraft Festival, many other events have gone fully digital to compensate for obviously not being able to gather large crowds. Thinking about major, tech companies doing things like Google, Apple, Amazon, etc. And it's easier to cover. It's easier to get the information when it's all just in a either pre-recorded or very well rehearsed, simple digital distributed announcement, and you get a wider audience because everyone on the planet can tune in. Now, a lot of times, things like Apple and Google, they'll do that anyway, rather than having one or the other. It's usually both. But yeah, I'm seeing some smaller companies like NVIDIA, for people that are looking to upgrade their graphics card, although for other reasons you might want to hold off on that for a little bit. They did their own announcement. So you're seeing a lot of the smaller tech companies being unable to go to big gaming conferences, like multi-platform gaming conferences, like say E3 and stuff like that. They're now doing their own little digital announcements, and it's a better way to get the information. I think that more people get it, and more people can dissect it in this way. And the fact that it's also safer, I think, is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling and talking about Minecraft Live, because, for a start, it's good to hear they're putting the important announcements up front this year.
Yes.
I feel like it's saving everybody's time and attention, and we imagine it's going to be a much less involved show than it was previously, with the kind of host segments and stuff like that. I expect a lot of it is just going to focus on the information, and that's probably just for the benefit of everybody right now. Time is kind of precious these days. And yeah, thinking about that on a side note, it must have been really deflating for Mojang to plan the long-awaited return of Minecon, a massive 3-day convention event, and then the way it's looking right now, they're having to scale back even further than the live streams they've done over the last 3 years. So shout out to anybody at Mojang who's keeping morale up right now, because it must have been like such a hard U-turn to make, but a necessary one. So I'm glad to hear that they've restructured things a little bit. We're going to reserve our thoughts on the mob vote for our main discussion this week, because we have some more in-depth thoughts on that one. But I'm trying to think of what else we can say about Minecraft Live that we already know, other than just, presumably some sort of announcement about the future of Minecraft Earth and Minecraft Dungeons.
So I was scrambling before the show because I don't know whether I saw this on Twitter, whether I read it in an article or heard it in a YouTube video. I cannot find the source, so don't quote me on this. But I thought there was supposed to be 30 or 20 minutes before the Minecraft Live event where they were going to do some sort of community event. Like, be sure to join us ahead of time for a community event. It's popping around in my brain. I don't know where I heard it or saw it, so I don't know if that's true. Having covered the event last year, or an event, Minecon Live, whatever they wanted to call it, I'm happy that they're putting the important stuff up front, because I think that's what everybody wants to know. And I think that it will be better for people like you and I that are covering it, for people that are interested in that kind of stuff from home, that are interested in the gameplay beats and the information, and not necessarily all of the show and stuff that they did previously to entertain a crowd full of people, which they don't have this year.
The Twitter account post did promise hilarious over-rehearsed jokes, Joel, so I don't think we're getting off too lightly.
No, there's that too. Yeah. So, I mean, the video that they made was cringy to begin with. But again, it's not for me. I get that I'm not the audience for that. Mm-hmm. But the thing that they did, I want to say it was last year, that I really enjoyed, were these panels that then were either all happening at the same time, or certainly were available on the Minecraft YouTube channel after the fact.
Yes.
And you could still do that kind of stuff. Like, you could still get a bunch of people from, say, like Hermitcraft or SciCraft or developers from Mojang, and put them all in a Zoom call and record a panel, and then have these panels available later for on demand. That I hope they do more stuff like that, because I don't necessarily think that would be that difficult to do it digitally compared to doing it in person. If anything, it's probably more difficult to fly people around the world, and get them all in the same space in Boston, to do it.
And these are all digital people to begin with, right? Like,
yes.
a lot of them are YouTube content creators, or they've at least got the equipment that you can make that with a relatively sound standard of production. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We also don't know the full duration of the event, and I don't know if they've ever published that ahead of time previously, but we know when it's going to be starting, but not when it's going to be ending. So it could just be like a half-hour long showcase. I imagine it'll probably stretch to an hour or so. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that if we're doing live coverage of it, we'll be live a little bit ahead of the event anyway, just to kind of have a warm-up chat and see what we can get going in the chat, people's predictions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So be prepared this Saturday to be on Pixel Riff's twitch.tv/Pixel Riff's channel. I'd say maybe at minimum 10 minutes before the hour.
Yeah, we will signpost it on various social media stuff ahead of time. It'll be on the Spawn Chunks Twitter account, on our Twitter account. We'll drop a link in our Discord. We'll do all kinds of stuff to make sure people are going the right place at the right time. But aside from that, of course, I think Minecraft.net will have a live stream. I think it'll also be up on YouTube. I forget exactly where they're streaming things now that Microsoft's main streaming platform being Mixer. I think it was broadcast live on Mixer previously, and that's no longer the case. So, yeah, we'll see how that all goes. Outside of that, PlayStation VR support. Joel, you've kind of been more interested in VR than I have in previous episodes of the podcast. What is your take on PlayStation VR having Minecraft?
More support for VR, I think, is better, as it just kind of permeates the gaming sphere. I think that that's going to be good for people that are into PlayStation VR. I've heard that PlayStation VR is good for people that like console gaming and want to get into VR. Yeah. I've heard mostly that the better solutions for VR are not just PC-based, but actually standalone. When I was looking into it, I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I was looking at an Oculus Rift S. and I was told by several of my friends that are into gaming news and covering that kind of stuff. They were like, "No, get a Quest." I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, because the Quest Link beta allows you to take this untethered experience, which would be very similar to a PlayStation VR, and tether it to your computer to get more powerful performance. So you could have the unplugged experience in VR with like lower quality games. Not that the games are bad, but the hardware is not the same. So you have a higher quality experience when you're able to plug in and use your computer hardware to augment the VR experience. The Quest 2 was just announced and is available for pre-order from Oculus. And so that has higher resolution screens and all that kind of stuff. So I am not particularly interested in PlayStation VR because, well, one, I'm an Xbox user, and two, I'd be more leaning on a PC or a PC compatible VR experience. And still, it looks like the Quest 2 is kind of your best entry level into VR. It starts at $459 Canadian. I think it's $399 American to get into it.
Yeah.
Which is about the same as a console, but you've got a VR experience. So my question actually is, I don't know, and if anybody in our audience knows, please write into spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. Is the Quest 2 compatible with Minecraft? Like if I was to plug the Quest 2 into my PC, could I play Minecraft Bedrock Edition or Windows 10 Edition, I guess, in VR? Because that might swing my hand on getting the Quest 2 sooner than later. Because I want it for other reasons, just not just gaming, but also art. I have a couple of other games like No Man's Sky that are VR ready, so stuff like that would be cool. I am really interested in Minecraft in VR. I don't know, because of how long I've played it in Java in the regular way, in the same way that I can't fathom playing Minecraft on a phone. Where other people can't. I had a conversation with somebody in my stream the other day where they're just like, I'm still trying to get used to WASD to move around, and I'm just like, wow, because they spent all of their Minecraft gameplay has been mobile, so they're just like, this is weird. And just like you and I, when we go to play Bedrock, you're like, this is weird, and I feel like I would probably say this is really cool, but I don't know if I want to play Minecraft like this all the time.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of Minecraft and Microsoft specifically's vision of the future is like NVIDIA 3080, 3090, whatever, like newer graphics cards, Minecraft in VR, RTX on, and like whatever resolution like VR headsets can do at that point. Like obviously, I think the 30 series of NVIDIA's cards is now running 60 FPS in 4K with Minecraft RTX. I've seen a couple of videos coming out about that. So the vision of the future maybe being like as immersive a Minecraft experience as possible, and the only thing breaking your immersion is the fact that everything around you is kind of blocky compared to the real world. But yeah, I do wonder how long it takes for the VR experience, if it tests well on PlayStation and people are into it, to start creeping into Minecraft on other platforms as well. I think Java maybe has a mod for it at this point. I think it was called Vivecraft for like the HTC Vive specifically, but there may have been other platforms that were compatible. But yeah, I imagine like that was developing a while ago. I don't know how it's developed since. I've had a lot of people, coming into streams, live chats, comments, and so forth, asking me if I'm interested in PlayStation VR, and I think it's cool that it's an option. I think it's really cool that people are finding new ways to experience Minecraft still. And I'm sure VR Minecraft is pretty immersive. I'm still not sold on VR as a platform myself, as like a consumer, as somebody who is, gonna have to shell out for the hardware and stuff. I don't think I would use it frequently enough to really consider it a viable purchase. But also returning to console Minecraft just to have that experience is probably not going to happen for me, as likewise not for you. But I'm interested in seeing where people take that and what experiences. It's like with Minecraft Earth, right? Where you had the AR experience of Minecraft. What is possible in VR Minecraft that is less possible with a PC? Like, there's got to be some stuff that's really going to be unique about that experience that you're not really going to be able to get any other way, aside from just seeing the world around you by looking around and wearing the thing on your face. I'm really interested to hear from anybody out there, again, who wants to email the show, spawnchunkmail@gmail.com, if you are interested in the PlayStation VR experience, if you've tried Minecraft in VR, let us know how it was. Or if there's any YouTubers who've played it that you feel like really had an exemplary experience of Minecraft in VR, I'm interested in seeing that right now. Just for, almost for comparison's sake to how else you can experience Minecraft and what's different about that whole feeling. I'm sure it's just for the sake of injecting some humor into the Minecraft.net article, but one of the interviewees, one of the producers of the VR component of PlayStation VR Minecraft, keeps talking about how much he fell over, and I'm like, yeah, that would be me. That would entirely be me. I would probably get like, my stomach falling out when I was like jumping off of a cliff or something like that, and I'd like try and catch myself, and that'd be really disorienting. And then I imagine I would swing around to like attack a mob or something and then just like fall flat on my face, probably.
That's what I worry about. I think that kind of stuff would be cool. You'd probably get used to the height thing. I feel like I would be able to kind of like, because it's Minecraft and not some really high-def video games, I would be able to say, okay, well, this isn't real life. I'm not worried about falling off the edge of this block. What I would be worried about is like walking down my path and then turning around to go the other way, and there's a creeper right there.
Yeah,
yeah. Or anything right there. It's just that jump scare of like, you were talking in our pre-show about, stuff in your house that looks like a person when you walk by.
Yes.
And giving yourself a scare like that kind of thing, I think would make me jump, and I'd be worried about stuff like that. I want to give a quick shout out to Jumbo Sale in our live Discord recording for sending me an article where Minecraft is available on the Oculus Rift and Rift S. So that would not be on the Quest, but the Quest would be able to plug in, and then you'd be able to access your Rift catalog. So Minecraft would be available on the Quest 2. Also, for those curious, the resolution on the Quest 2 is 1832 by 1920 pixels per eye.
Mm-hmm. That's like
high.
That's 2 monitors, basically, more or less.
Yeah. On your face.
That's pretty wild, man. It's pretty wild. All right.
Yeah, it's getting there. So what do you think we move on to email?
Yeah, let's do it. This week's email comes in from Dark the Fox. Once again, if you'd like to email the show, the email address is spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. And the subject of this one is leaf layers. Hi, Johnny and Joel. I recently binged through all the episodes of the Spawn Chunks while doing work, and am now fully caught up and eagerly await new episodes every Monday. Listening to your discussions about snow layers and how you wish sand behaved in the same way got me thinking, what other types of layered blocks could be added for ambience? I've come up with 2 ideas, both forest-related, likely because I love forests, leaves, and mulch. While walking through a forest in real life, the ground is always littered with dead leaves, and I thought that maybe could be added in Minecraft. I figured they would spawn in on world generation in forests and could also be obtained by the player. So how might one obtain dead leaf layers? Well, why not add in dead leaves? In most biomes, leaves are always nice and green, and there's not really any way to work in dead leaves anywhere that isn't a desert. So here's my idea. When you cut out the logs of a tree, all of the leaf blocks quickly turn into a dead variant before decaying normally and dropping saplings, and, in the case of oak trees, apples, like normal. To obtain these, one would simply need to use shears or a silk touch tool to break the blocks like normal. This way you could obtain dead leaves for building or crafting layers out of, similar to snow, but you would need to obtain normal leaves in the traditional way by tearing all the leaves down before the logs, which I imagine is how it's normally done when one wants to obtain large amounts of leaves. I think leaves turning dead would only apply to leaves generated on trees, and leaf blocks placed by the player would be unaffected, in the same way player-placed leaf blocks don't decay now. Now for mulch, I'd imagine this would be likely trickier to implement a crafting recipe for. In my mind, I would think of it maybe similar to how a carpet is made, just with logs instead of wool. Alternatively, maybe if a woodcutter block that you discussed in the past episode was introduced at some point, it could be created through that. I think both of these ideas could add more ambience to forest biomes, or could be used in garden areas such as the public park area in the modern city build on the Citadel. We'd love to hear your feedback on these ideas. Sincerely, Dark the Fox. Thank you so much for that email. A traditional sign-off this time as well, instead of the usual chunks away kind of stuff that we get.
Yeah. Missed opportunity to say Dark the Fox from Pixel Rift's backyard, but, you know.
There's a few of them around. So, mulch and dead leaves, and leaf layers in particular, definitely kind of stand out to me. That my first thought about mulch was that maybe it could be another byproduct of composters. Having played a bit of the Dr. Trog Skyblock map, where composters, for a while, I don't think they do it in the newest version of the map, but composters gave you dirt as well as bone meal. It's not unfeasible to think of composters basically chucking a block at you, or some sort of low-lying wood chip kind of stuff coming out of it alongside the bone meal, and they both have very different, different uses. With bone meal being bone meal, but then mulch just being more of a decorative block. I feel like that could work. I just want layers of anything at this point for decoration. I'm sure you're the same. You've been detailing paths through a medieval area. I imagine you're trying to trying to do everything you can to make sure that you've got some more dirt textures to work with, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I've been dealing with this specifically as I've been building this path through this taiga biome, and I've ended up using oak wood, so the all bark version.
Yeah.
Spruce stairs, which they look like planks. You kind of have to stretch your imagination to get them to look like anything else. And spruce trapdoors, which actually do help a little bit as far as the layers go. But again, it still looks like a trapdoor. You kind of have to, for oak wood, spruce slab, and spruce trapdoor to look like a tree root, you kind of have to just go with the right shape and hope that people will get there on their own.
You're suspending your disbelief a certain amount, yeah.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did find surprisingly worked very well, and I didn't anticipate it to do so, is acacia wood, the all-over bark, for dead spruce / pine needles.
Mm-hmm.
I was using gravel and I was using andesite in the path, and they were just too bright. They were just too blue. And by putting in the very warm gray acacia bark texture in the path, it actually worked quite well. It's sparse, and better along the edges and stuff like that, but still pretty good. Biggest challenge, of course, is that the grass color in a taiga biome is kind of like a mint green. It's not really dark green. So using the mossy blocks doesn't always work. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But you can't use like green concrete powder as freely as you think you would be able to. I have podzol, which I guess is the game's answer to tree mulch and forest floor.
Yeah.
But it's really high contrast. Like it's got colored leaves on it, and it's got this dark brown top to it, dirt side to it. It's not. It's a good looking block in its own context, but in certain mixes it just doesn't really work very well. Specifically, again, it stands out very highly in the mint colored grass in the taiga biome. I have a custom dirt texture which helps quite a bit. So coarse dirt, actually a custom coarse dirt texture where I've used a file to add in random pebbles. So I've got, I think, 3 different textures, and I just say like use this one 5% of the time, use this one 3% of the time. So most of the coarse dirt that I push down, it looks like coarse dirt, but every once in a while there's like a gray pebble in it, which I find helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I use that gray pebble texture on a custom data pack texture for the Petrified Oak Slab.
Right.
Not available in survival, but it is part of the vanilla game. You can use it in creative mode. And what this allows you to do is use a slab and create your own texture for it without sacrificing another slab in the game.
Yeah,
because you can't get it.
It's like the one shot you get at that when you're making a custom texture pack. It's like they're like, you have one choice.
Exactly.
You can't add anything else into the game without modding it, but you can just use this one slab if you want to retexture something. And yeah, I feel like dirt slabs is most people's choice when it comes to that stuff because naturally speaking, in natural landscapes, dirt is going to come in slopes and is not really going to form these meter-high blocks everywhere. So if you want to make anything naturalistic, then a dirt slab kind of makes the most sense, really.
And oh boy, like the idea from Dark the Fox about layering leaves, not only is it kind of in line with something I feel Minecraft would do, like it doesn't feel like they're asking for the moon. It's like, no, this makes sense. We have composters, we have leaves. I like the idea of the dead leaves dropping after you've chopped down a tree. So in addition to sticks and apples, you also get the possibility of getting dead leaves that you can then craft into leaf layers. Really smart. I think that would go a long way. Would certainly solve my problem of the challenges of going up very odd slopes, and you have to either do slabs or stairs if you don't want to jump as you're going along your paths, and that means that your slopes either have to be a lot longer than you want them to, or if they're steep, you have to put in stairs, and stairs look like nothing else but stairs in Minecraft. So you can sort of get away with making a rock with some stairs on it and sort of scramble up the rock, but it doesn't quite work when you're trying to do a path that's supposed to be a little bit more manufactured as opposed to just scrambling up a mountainside.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of layers, and layers in anything really. I don't know how that affects game performance. I'm not sure whether snow layers and stuff like that are really hard in the game. So maybe that's why we don't have sand layers and dirt layers.
As somebody who did a lot of work on a mountain, and I do have a fairly beefy PC, and this is on a single player world, so I don't really know how much anything was affected by it. But anecdotally, I didn't really see that much of a difference when I placed a lot of snow layers down.
Right.
I think it is still having to account for rendering all of the edges of blocks, and there are fewer places where it can do that thing where it doesn't load a texture of blocks that are adjacent to each other, so it saves a little bit of memory by doing that. I'm generalizing here because I really don't know exactly how that stuff works, but from what I understand, yeah, the rendering just kind of ignores the edges of blocks that you can't see. But I think snow layers really don't affect that all that much. No differently than, having a mountain there would, and just having like a series of blocks where there are going to be visible faces regardless. It's like it would be like having a performance change if you go from a plains to a mountain biome. And unless you introduce stuff like transparency where you're having to render stuff through stuff, I don't think it makes as much of a difference, which maybe you would have to do with leaves if you were using fast graphics, or fancy graphics rather.
Yeah. I'm even on board if it's just something like carpet. Like carpet doesn't cause any lag. And I mean, imagine one of the other issues I'm having is lighting this path, because I don't want it to be destroyed by creepers, and I also don't want players to die on it. Yet I don't want to necessarily put it. It's supposed to be like a hiking path. I don't want to put lampposts on it. And so I've been hiding, torches underground covered by bushes. And it would be really cool if I could put a torch down and cover it with a single layer of leaf mulch and have that light still shine through. Mm-hmm. Just from a gameplay mechanic standpoint, it wouldn't look the most natural, but at least it would look like, at least it would be hidden and it wouldn't be, as obvious as it is now.
Yeah, there are definitely mods that add stuff like this as well. I mean, thinking mainly of mods like chisels and bits, the kind of things that allow you to cut down something to like a 1 pixel layer of a block so that you can turn basically anything into a slab or a carpet size layer if you want to. But I think there are also some other mods that are more interested in developing the organic world in Minecraft and having different kind of tree types and that kind of stuff, which will also include things like dirt layers and tree layers, leaf layers and that kind of stuff. So I've definitely seen them used. They can make stuff look very, very pretty, aesthetically wonderful stuff. I don't know. I assume that the arguments against this from a development standpoint are the same as the arguments against things like making slabs and stairs out of everything, is that, giving the player too much variety removes the kind of puzzle element of the game and making sure that players use stuff innovatively in creative ways and kind of work with the challenges of there being a limited block palette. But that's kind of the only reason I can think against this idea, and it's becoming more and more of a weak justification, I think. And I don't know, maybe if we find out that there is an inventory update on the horizon when Minecraft Live comes around, maybe we'll start to see a few more of these fun little ideas getting implemented when they're not really going to cause any harm. They're just going to add to the amount of items that there are in the game and the amount of things that we need to store.
Thanks again for the great email, Dark the Fox.
Yes.
Good stuff. Loved it.
Right, the mob vote. Let's do this. I thought we could probably dedicate the entire discussion to it today simply because we need to declare for which mob we're supporting. We've done it in previous years. We did it the first time around, I believe, and I remember us definitely doing it for the biome vote specifically.
Definitely for biomes, yeah.
Yeah, I think we hadn't even started the podcast when we were still voting for mobs A, B, D, and C. But I think for the biomes, we wanted savannas the first time around, and we ended up getting tigers, and that was a decent choice. And then this time around, we voted for mountains. We got mountains, or we will be getting mountains, and presumably that's going to come up at some point in Minecraft Live. This time around, the mob vote is back, and there are 3 options which have already been teased earlier in the show: the Iceology, the Moo Bloom, and the Glow Squid. I put descriptions in our show notes so that we can see exactly what these are. This comes from the Minecraft.net article, but there is a link to there's a video to it as well. Jeb and Lady Agnes have done the same sort of stylized, cartoony depictions of them they've had before, and they've got a little bit of information about each one, and I assume spotlight videos will be coming out for them throughout the week here. So the Iceology, this cold-hearted illager from Minecraft Dungeons, thrives in snowy, icy, and rocky areas. If you vote for this hostile mob, they'll move into the new mountaintops that tower over the overworld. These mountains are so tall that vegetation doesn't grow on them, just spiky ice formations, rocks, and snow as far as the eye can see. The Iceology would make these mountains even more challenging since they don't want to just hang up there. Oh no, when you meet one of them, they will hurl flying ice clouds at you. Moving on to the Moo Bloom, this four-legged flower is a fan favorite from Minecraft Earth, and pretty much the opposite of hostile. Rumor has it that if Moo Blooms move into Minecraft, they will be able to interact with bees, but nobody has told me exactly how. This is the text directly from the Minecraft.net article. Last of which, the Glow Squid. This shimmering sea creature also made its debut in Minecraft Earth. The glow in Glow Squid refers to the way it literally glows in the same way that Enderman's eyes do. While we're comparing this candidate to existing mobs, I can tell you they are pretty similar to the squid that are already swimming around in Minecraft. They won't attack players or other entities, but the glow is pretty atmospheric. That's probably why they prefer dark bodies of water. The effect just isn't the same in an already sun-drenched ocean. So once again, a little bit more information about these mobs is going to be coming out throughout the week, where to find them and so forth, and maybe a little bit more info about what the Moo Bloom is going to do to interact with bees. What are your first impressions, Joel?
So I'm going to say right here that I called it a couple of weeks ago on the show when I said that I was hoping that this would not be the case, in that the mobs are all just existing versions of mobs from other games that are Minecraft related or themed, and or also just different versions of things we encounter in the game already, like the Moo Bloom. I think you even joked about like a mushroom chicken and like a variant of a sheep. For me, the most interesting off the top is the Iceology. I have not yet encountered them in Minecraft Dungeons, but hearing you talk at length about them a couple weeks ago on the show, that to me is the most interesting and I would say dynamic and would affect player gameplay the most.
Yeah.
And give us the most to do, I guess, for a new mob. The description of hurling an ice cloud makes me think of an attack similar to like a blaze fireball. But instead of a fireball, it's like an ice cloud. Thinking like Superman's ice breath, like a horizontal attack rather than dropping a giant, boulder on you from above.
Yeah. How exactly they are going to attack in regular Minecraft when they're added, if they're added, is going to be interesting because when you fight them in Minecraft Dungeons, they drop boulders of ice on you, which you can see clearly from the fixed isometric top-down perspective of Dungeons. But if they attack the same way in first-person Minecraft, you're not going to see it coming unless you're looking up at the time. So they might be fairly difficult to fight. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I do think that the Iceology seems the most likely. And I like the idea of the hurling a cloud of ice at you. It could be kind of similar to Dragon's Breath, where it leaves a lingering slowness effect on the ground instead of a kind of potion of harming style effect that Dragon's Breath has. And you can see that kind of bringing existing mechanics in while making them a little bit more playable in Minecraft than they were in, just porting the same attack over from Minecraft Dungeons, I don't think would work as well.
Yeah, and I think that if they stay with the ice theme, and if they drop something like ice or packed ice, or maybe like ice shards or icicles or something similar to how Guardians don't drop prismarine, but they drop prismarine crystals and shards and things like that you can then craft with later. I think it would mean a renewable form of packed ice, for players in the biomes and farms and techno players that want a lot of ice. People that maybe don't like have a close ice spikes biome and stuff like that. I know there's other ways to get ice in the game, but this would be just a different way and a fun way. Again, creating gameplay for technical players. The question I have, and I have this question without knowing much about the Iceology or the other mobs. This to me just makes a lot of sense with the mountain biome update anyway. So, like, if the Moo Bloom wins the vote, does that mean that what would have been a cool addition to Minecraft, which I feel should go in anyway, is just not going to be there? I feel like the vote is potentially hamstringing what is just a good idea. I like the idea of the Iceologer. I think that we've been toying around with different Minecraft Dungeons mobs that would make a good transition into Minecraft Prime for months, and I think that the Iceologer is probably the top candidate. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm thinking that based on what I've seen people talk about online, the reveal video for these three mobs for the mob vote implies that they are doing what they've been doing with the biome votes and intending to add these into the game anyway, and we're just deciding which one comes first.
Right.
And so, I think they have learned their lesson from the previous mob vote where everything was just an undeveloped concept, and now they've effectively already designed what these mobs look like and what they do for the other versions of the game, and it's just about which one they add to Minecraft Prime first. And so in that respect, it doesn't really matter which one we vote for because we're going to get all of them anyway, and if you think that the Iceology would make a good addition to the mountain biome update, then that's great. If you want it to come up concurrently with the mountain biome update, then that might happen if we vote for them this time around, or they might just show up a little bit later on. Because they are an illager, there is also the possibility of them showing up in raids, in woodland mansions, in the places that we already find illagers in the world. So that's kind of an additional point of depth for the Iceology to me. And if they follow the same spawning patterns as illagers, they will potentially spawn during the day. So this is where the Iceology becomes a bit of a double-edged sword for me, because if you're putting them in the newest biome in the game, putting a tricky-to-fight hostile mob there, depending on how they attack, is going to discourage some players from going there because they don't want difficult combat, which means that a certain proportion of players never really gets to experience that biome because they're too worried about an Iceology jumping on them and freezing them. So it might make it a little bit annoying to make your base in a new mountain biome if you have these guys nearby. So that's kind of my devil's advocate point in the cons column.
I wonder if, and this just dawned on me right now, I wonder if they'll switch the spawning mechanics of the Iceologer to what we're assuming to something more like how witches spawn in witch huts in swamps. What if the Iceologer has a cave? A small little 5x9 area that are built into the existing mountains biomes, and that's the only spot it spawns.
Yeah, that could be an interesting implementation of it. There are definitely some people speculating before they realized that it was going to be with the mountains biome that they could end up in those laboratory igloos, and they could have been keeping the villagers and experimenting on them and stuff, which would add a certain amount of lore to that structure.
Nice.
So yeah, I think
dark, but nice.
There is potential for them to be limited spawns in the same way that witches in witch huts could be, or illagers in woodland mansions only spawn once. So once you've defeated the Ice King at the top of the mountain, that's it. You don't get any more Iceologists. That could be the case. We don't know. And also in Minecraft Dungeons terms, the Iceology is kind of linked to this artifact called the Ice Wand that allows you to basically do the Iceologer's attack. So you drop a boulder with, ice and a stunning effect on a bunch of mobs in a certain area. And so people were speculating if the Iceology drops something like that, that potentially means adding another weapon into Minecraft in more of a magical sense that, potentially gives you the option to do that. There is obviously no indication that will happen, and Minecraft Dungeons has tons of weapons and artifacts and stuff that aren't really related to vanilla Minecraft at all. But there is potential for them to go down that avenue. It's a long shot, but potentially something that could happen if the Iceology is introduced.
Even if it wasn't a weapon, like even if it was just something similar to Frostwalker, where instead of walking on a lake to freeze it over, you could just right-click on it with a tool, and Iceologers want to freeze and then harvest ice in just a different way. That would be kind of interesting. Yeah, it might also lend some credit to my theory of like ice shards coming like as drops as opposed to full blocks, because then the shards could maybe be used in conjunction with other materials to make the wand or something.
Yeah, or you end up using it on ice. It turns the ice into packed ice. That makes blue ice a little bit easier to farm. There could be potential there for sure. I think, we front-loaded this a little bit, but I really feel like the Iceology gets my vote right now because it actually feels like it has some depth. We just managed to spin a reasonable discussion out of what this mob could be. And then we have the other two. We have the Glow Squid and the Moo Bloom, both of which feel very cosmetic to me, and that's okay. If you wanted more ambient mobs in Minecraft, I would totally understand that, but to me, I like to use a lot of the additional mechanics of Minecraft. I like it as a challenge, I like it as a sort of puzzle, I like there to be depth added with new stuff, and to me, unless there is some sort of unforeseen consequence of the Glow Squid and the Moo Bloom being in the game, they are just pretty looking and not much else. How do you feel about the other two, Joel?
So the Glow Squid is definitely higher on my list than the Moon Bloom. I don't have anything nice to say, so I'm not going to say anything at all. It's the Moo Bloom is cute. It's just not for me, right?
Sure.
Like I'm not the target audience for that. That's fine. My niece would probably flip out to give you context, right? Like it would be the thing, But the Glow Squid, I think the thing that has me on my heels about these is that like they're just retextured. As far as we know right now, there's some hints that the Moo Bloom is going to interact with a bee. The Glow Squid being in the deeper, darker oceans, cold oceans, maybe. That's cool, because something that you might notice if you do explore some of the oceans now in Minecraft is that aside from kelp, the deeper stuff is pretty sparse. There's not a lot going on, which is, I guess, true to form in real world oceans. But in Minecraft, where things maybe need to be a little bit more vibrant, the stark contrast being warm oceans or lukewarm oceans that are shallower, you can see more variety of plants. You can see things like sunken treasures and treasure ships and all that kind of stuff, shipwrecks. But I'm disappointed that the glow squid doesn't have a different model. To so far. Again, all of this is just based on the information we have so far, which is very little. But it just looks like a squid with a different texture.
Yeah,
and if it was a different squid, like a bigger squid or one of those longer squids that you see in world, that they could have done a new Minecrafty model, that would be more interesting.
Even in the copy that's about it in the Minecraft.net article says they're pretty similar to the squid we already have, and I go, okay. I mean, in the same sense that the Moo Bloom is pretty similar to a Moo Shroom, right? And the Iceology could be fairly similar to, an Illusioner or an Evoker or whatever, but I feel like they don't really seem all that different. And the glowing feature sounds great until you realize that Minecraft doesn't have dynamic lighting right now. Any dynamic lighting you are used to is from Optifine if you use that mod. And so the squid aren't actually going to provide any kind of illumination unless they change that about vanilla Minecraft and they're introducing a more dynamic lighting vibe to it. They're just going to look like they glow texturally but not provide any kind of illumination to their surroundings. So
they have hinted that the next update's going to be big. Like there are some things that were big in Minecraft that and lighting could be part of it. You never know.
It's got potential if there is some sort of change to lighting, because actually having like a movable organic light source and that kind of natural bioluminescence happening in deep oceans sounds cool. It would make me want to go out and find a glow squid so that I could, put it in a fish tank and have like a moving light source in a fish tank would be super cool. You could use them to light your base and have the lights maybe follow you or something. Like there'd be really interesting ways you could do that, and it would add a lot of atmosphere to the game in a way that I think the Moo Bloom wouldn't, because the bees thing seems like a fun facet of the Moo Bloom that gives it a little bit more mechanical interest than just adding a new variant of cow to Minecraft. But I don't really see many players making bees the focus of their gameplay right now. And as for it having dandelions attached to it, dandelions are the second most common flower in the game, so that's not going to be useful in terms of a resource. And I'm sure we're being encouraged not to think of these as a resource, but that's just the way my brain goes,
Yeah.
So I think I'm least enthusiastic about the Moo Bloom. Like you, I kind of feel like the priority for me is Iceology, Glow Squid, Moo Bloom at the bottom of the heap. So, yeah. And there are some people in our live chat right now pointing out that, for a start, passive mobs have an uphill battle. Dilken7 says that passive mobs are going to have a harder time winning through in these votes because they don't have as much depth than a hostile mob do, because a hostile mob naturally has, the combat experience in mind before you even think about its other behaviors, what it drops, and so forth. And then Jumbo Sales saying maybe they want to tie in RTX ray tracing Minecraft launch to having something like a Glow Squid, where definitely if you could have that being a movable light source in RTX and have it, refracting light through the water around it, then that sounds cool. But it seems like a lot to bank on a feature which is going to be used by a fairly minimal number of people until at least the current console generation catches up to RTX ray tracing being standard in Minecraft, which I don't know if that's going to happen with the Xbox Series X and PS5. It might do, but right now RTX is only on PC, and that's a pretty big gamble to focus on just the one mob being part of that.
Well, focusing on light, Elcor95 in my Discord community pointed out the potential drop from a Glow Squid could be a new light source item or something that you could craft into a light source. Not just something that would be glowstone, but like something new.
that's the optimism at work there. Like I saw the Glow Squid and I was instantly like, well, sometimes it drops ink, sometimes it drops glowstone, and now I have a bunch of glowstone dust in my squid farm.
Yeah.
Then again, if you're making a squid farm in a river and these things are only going to be spawning in deep oceans, then you can kind of keep them separate. I understand that, but if they drop something new.
Yeah, because we've got the precedent set with Soulfire torches and Soulfire lanterns that there's a different light level coming from those.
Sure, yes.
And so potentially a new item from a Glow Squid could also be an additional light level. I don't know what color it would be, probably that kind of like bioluminescent kind of turquoisey thing. Hopefully something different, I don't know. It would be really neat if there was some sort of, and this is really grasping, some sort of black light, so some sort of dark block that you could put down that would emit some form of light. There's a lot of particles involved with a ender chest, but they do actually emit light. So stuff like that would be kind of neat to add to the game. And you mentioned bioluminescence earlier, and I've been playing a lot of No Man's Sky the last week, and like the idea of bioluminescence coming to some of the deeper, darker ocean biomes in Minecraft is really cool. And even if it's just plants, like even if it's just a couple of things like different fish that glow, or this Glow Squid, or anything that kind of adds that kind of coolness, that cool factor to oceans, I think would be really helpful. Because I like the new water mechanics that they added back in 1.13, if we can still call them new. I don't find myself exploring the oceans very much though.
Yeah. So maybe it's time to refresh the oceans a little bit to remind people how much diversity exists there, and I think that's a pretty solid vote of in the Glow Squids column. I think I imagine Moo Blooms are probably going to be found in terms of biomes, either just generally in plains where there are dandelions naturally, or in something like flower forests, for example. They could be a unique mob to that biome, which would again encourage people to go and seek out flower forests more if they wanted to find one. But yeah, it's an interesting landscape, and thinking back to it, actually, would the Iceologer living in a cave technically count as a cave update? I do wonder.
Man, so mad.
I'm gonna say though that as far as the spawn chunks goes, our official vote is probably going with the Iceologer. Is that fair to say, Joel? Would you say you were?
Yeah, it does depend on more information, but I'm very heavily leaning on the Iceologer. It would be the kind of thing where like more information is going to be needed.
Yeah.
And if the more information that comes during Minecraft Live is mountain biome related and either reinforces the Iceologer or says, oh, wait a minute, maybe we don't need the Iceologer, maybe the Glow Squid would give us more variety. Like I think that's one thing that they might end up, if the biome update that's coming is the mountains and that's the first thing that's coming, then people may want to go Glow Squid because it'll diversify the update.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
It
might spread the love around rather than focusing it all in one area. I don't know. But yes, Iceology for me so far.
Dilkin7 has just pointed out it would be a cave update that actively stopped people from exploring the caves. It's kind of the same way as like the Phantom, a new mob, but it's everyone's worst nightmare. I like that. That's pretty funny. All right, folks, we are going to leave it here now that we have settled on our contender for this year's mob vote. Use your vote wisely, but I think it should be an interesting time regardless, and we will see you on October 3rd for Minecraft Live, restreamed once again at twitch.tv/Pixarifs, my Twitch channel, so that we can see everything that's going on. The spawn chunks will be there. hopefully you guys will be too. But that's it for this episode of the podcast. You can find more information about the show and links to some of the stuff we've talked about today at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show was composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud as ever to be a listener-supported podcast. If you get value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? You can visit patreon.com/thespawnchunks to join our community, where pledging at any level gets you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat, gets us closer to our next goal of having a monthly Minecraft audio hangout, which is just like this, but privately in our Discord with our patrons chatting about what we've been doing in Minecraft. We're currently at 210 patrons, which I think is another increase from last week. Special thanks go out to our content engineers, Cameron Sigelski, Dilken Seben, Greener Canuck, JD Williamson, and Yitz for your support in this episode. And I also want to thank everybody who's been listening to the show live in Discord. If you want to be one of those people, once again, that's patreon.com/thespawnchunks.
Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. You can find us at The Spawn Chunks on Twitter and Instagram, but personal recommendations are by far the best way to share the podcast. Just tell a person about The Spawn Chunks and where they can go to listen to it. That includes iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube if you're curious. You can email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com and also leave us a review or a rating on the Apple Podcast app. That is the best way for strangers looking for Minecraft podcasts to find the show. The RSS feed is linked on the spawnchunks.com, and the Patreon-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page, where you can listen to the render distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixelriffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/pixelriffs, where I attempt to make sense of this crazy and wonderful game in a series called the Minecraft Survival Guide, and then piglins yeet me into the void in my Skyblock series. I also stream 3 days a week on Twitch doing behind-the-scenes work for the Survival Guide series, mostly mining for ancient debris these days, and I'm the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick search on YouTube. Aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything I'm doing online is at joelduggan.com. That includes my illustration and design portfolio, links to other podcasts like the Citadel Cafe, where I talk with my friends like Megan and Brockett and Lou about all kinds of sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. You can also follow me at Joel Duggan on social media and Joel Duggan on twitch.tv/Joel Duggan, where there is absolutely no yeeting involved.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite. Don't forget to vote.